My name is Juniper. I'm 26, and I thought I understood my place in our family until the night I accidentally saw the group chat poll my sister Amber had created, most likely to fail at life. Every single family member had voted for me, aunts, uncles, cousins, even my own parents. The categories ranged from career failure to never getting married to biggest disappointment. What they didn't know was that I'd been secretly building something incredible while they dismissed me as the family screw-up. When my success finally exploded into the spotlight, their shocked faces would be absolutely priceless. Hey everyone, before we dive into this absolutely wild family karma story that literally changed everything I'm dying to know, where are you watching from today? Drop your location in the comments. And if you're ready for a story about family betrayal, secret success, and the sweetest revenge ever served, smash that like button and hit subscribe, because this journey is going to blow your mind. Trust me, the ending is so satisfying it'll give you chills. Let's jump right in. Growing up as the youngest in the Morrison family meant living in the shadow of my older sister Amber's seemingly perfect life. From day one, she was the golden child who could do no wrong, while I was the afterthought who somehow always managed to mess things up. Amber was valedictorian prom queen, full scholarship to Yale, and engaged to her college sweetheart by 22. Meanwhile, I was the kid who got C's, forgot my homework, and once accidentally dyed our white dog pink during a failed science experiment. The family dynamics were established early and never changed. Every holiday gathering, every birthday party, every family dinner became a stage for showcasing Amber's latest achievements while my struggles were either ignored or used as cautionary tales. When Amber graduated summa cum laude with her business degree, the entire family threw her a massive celebration party. When I finally graduated from community college 2 years later with my associate's degree in graphic design, I got a card and dinner at Applebee's. It wasn't just the academic stuff either. Amber landed a prestigious job at a Fortune 500 company straight out of college, bought a beautiful house in the suburbs by 25, and married her perfect husband in a fairy tale wedding that cost more than most. People's cars. Every family gathering became an opportunity for relatives to gush over her latest promotion, her stunning home renovations, or her picture-perfect marriage. Meanwhile, I was struggling to find my footing in the creative world. After graduation, I took a series of freelance graphic design jobs that barely paid the bills. I lived in a tiny studio apartment that I could barely afford, drove a 15-year-old Honda Civic that broke down more often than it ran, and hadn't had a serious relationship since high school. To my family, I was living proof that following your passions instead of practical career paths was a recipe for disaster. The comments started subtly but became increasingly harsh over the years. At family dinners, Uncle Frank would ask Amber about her latest business achievements and then turn to me with a patronizing smile. "And how's the art thing going, Juniper? Still drawing pictures for a living?" Aunt Susan would coo over. Amber's designer handbags and then look at my thrift store clothes with barely concealed pity. Cousin Rachel would show off photos of Amber's beautiful home and then ask me if I was still renting that little place downtown. My parents weren't much better. They loved me, I knew that, but they clearly didn't understand or value what I was trying to build. Dad would constantly suggest I should get a real job with benefits and stop wasting time on this computer art stuff. Mom would sigh whenever I mentioned my latest freelance project and ask when I was going to settle down and find a nice man like Amber did. The worst part was that I started believing them. After years of being treated like the family failure, I began to see myself that way too. Every rejected design proposal, every late payment from a client, every lonely Friday night in my cramped apartment felt like confirmation that maybe they were right. Maybe I was destined to be the disappointment, the cautionary tale, the one who never quite got her act together. But there was something they didn't know, something I'd been working on in secret for the past 3 years. While they saw my freelance work as aimless dabbling, I'd actually been building something much bigger. Using the skills I'd developed through those meaningless graphic design projects, I'd started creating digital art and selling it as NFTs and prints online. What began as a side hobby to make extra grocery money had slowly grown into something unexpected. I developed a distinctive style that combined traditional illustration techniques with digital manipulation, creating artwork that felt both nostalgic and futuristic. My pieces were starting to gain attention in online art communities, and I'd built a modest but loyal following on social media. Nothing huge yet, but the momentum was building, and I could feel something big on the horizon. The irony was that my family's constant dismissal had actually motivated me to work harder. Every snide comment about my computer pictures made me more determined to prove them wrong. Every time someone asked when I was going to get a real job, I spent another late night perfecting my craft, learning new techniques, and building my portfolio. I'd also been quietly networking with other artists, gallery owners, and collectors who actually understood and appreciated what I was doing. While my family saw a struggling waitress who occasionally sold some drawings online, I was actually building relationships in the art world that would prove invaluable. I attended gallery openings, joined artist collectives, and even had a few pieces accepted into small exhibitions around the city. But I kept all of this to myself, partly because I was afraid of more judgment and criticism, but also because I wanted to prove something. I wanted to show them that their golden child wasn't the only one capable of success, that the family failure could build something meaningful too. The breaking point came during last year's Thanksgiving dinner. The whole extended family was there, and, as usual, the conversation centered around Amber's latest accomplishments. She'd just gotten another promotion and was talking about the possibility of moving to an even bigger house. The aunts and uncles were practically swooning over her success story. Then, Uncle Frank, probably 3 drinks into his evening, turned to me with that same condescending smile he'd been giving me for years. "So, Juniper, when are you going to follow your sister's example and get serious about your career? You can't stay a starving artist forever." The table went quiet, and I felt all eyes on me. Amber looked uncomfortable but didn't say anything to defend me. My parents just stared at their plates. I mumbled something about being happy with my work and quickly changed the subject, but inside I was burning with humiliation and determination. That night I decided I was done hiding my ambitions and apologizing for my dreams. It was time to show my family exactly what this starving artist was capable of achieving. The family group chat had always been Amber's domain. She'd created it 2 years ago as a way for everyone to stay connected, but it quickly became another platform for showcasing her perfect life. Daily updates about her job photos, of her gourmet dinner parties, announcements about vacations and achievements. The chat was basically the Amber Show, with occasional supporting commentary from our adoring relatives. I mostly lurked in the background, sending the occasional congrats emoji or funny meme, but never really engaging deeply. It felt safer that way, less likely to invite comparison or criticism. I'd gotten used to being a spectator in my own family's digital conversations. That's why I wasn't prepared for what I saw when I opened the chat on that horrible Tuesday evening in March. I'd just gotten home from a particularly good day. I'd finished a commission piece that I was really proud of and had gotten positive feedback from a gallery owner about a potential exhibition opportunity. I was feeling optimistic about my work for the first time in months. But my good mood evaporated the second I saw what was happening in the family chat. Amber had created a poll with the title, "Family Fun Most Likely To," and underneath were a series of categories with multiple choice options. My heart sank as I read through them: most likely to still be single at 40, most likely to live with their parents forever, most likely to never own a home, most likely to end up broke, and the worst one of all, most likely to be the Family's biggest disappointment. The voting was anonymous, but the results were visible to everyone in the chat. And in every single category, one name dominated the results with crushing unanimity: mine. Not just winning by a small margin, absolutely sweeping every negative category with nearly 100% of the votes. 16 family members had participated in this poll, and apparently they all agreed that I was destined for complete failure in every aspect of life. I stared at my phone screen in disbelief, my hands actually shaking as I scrolled through the results. Under most likely to still be single at 40, I had 15 out of 16 votes. Most likely to live with their parents forever, 14 votes. Most likely to end up broke, all 16 votes. The one that really cut deep was most likely to be the family's biggest disappointment, where I'd received every single vote except one, and that one vote had gone to our cousin Danny, who was currently in rehab for the third time. The chat had been buzzing with laughter and commentary for hours before I saw it. Aunt Margaret had written, "LOL, this is so accurate," followed by several crying, laughing emojis. Uncle Frank had added, "Poor Juniper, but let's be realistic here." Even my own mother had participated, writing, "Oh, this is terrible, but so funny. Don't tell Juniper we did this. Don't tell Juniper we did this." As if I was some fragile child who couldn't handle the truth about what my own family really thought of me. As if they weren't talking about a real person with real feelings, but just some abstract family joke that existed for their entertainment. But the comment that really destroyed me came from Amber herself. Someone had asked if the poll was too mean, and my perfect sister had responded, "Come on, we're all thinking it anyway. At least this way, it's out in the open. Maybe it'll be the wake-up call she needs to get her life together finally." Sometimes tough love is the best love, tough love. She was calling this public humiliation tough love. The sister who was supposed to protect me, who I'd looked up to my entire life, despite the constant comparisons, had turned our entire extended family into a panel of judges for my life failures. And she thought she was doing me a favor. I sat on my tiny couch in my studio apartment, staring at this digital assassination of my character, and felt something inside me break. Not break in a defeated way, but break like a dam that had been holding back years of suppressed anger and determination. They all thought I was the family failure, the one who would never amount to anything. Fine. Let them think that. What they didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I'd just received an email that morning that was about to change everything. A major art collector in New York had seen my work through a gallery connection and wanted to discuss a potential collaboration. Not just buying a piece or two, but potentially featuring my work in a major exhibition at one of the most prestigious galleries in the city. I'd been keeping my growing success secret, partly out of superstition, not wanting to jinx anything before it was solid. But now I realized the secrecy had been a gift. While they were placing bets on my inevitable failure, I was quietly building something that would shatter every assumption they'd ever made about me. I screenshot the poll results and saved them to my phone. Not because I was a masochist who wanted to torture myself with them later, but because I wanted to remember this moment. I wanted to remember exactly how it felt to discover that your own family saw you as such a complete failure that they could turn your life struggles into entertainment. But most importantly, I wanted to have proof of their predictions when the time came, to show them how spectacularly wrong they'd been about me. Because that time was coming sooner than any of them could imagine, and I was going to make sure they remembered every single vote they'd cast against me. The family screw-up was about to become the family success story, and it was going to be absolutely beautiful to watch their faces when they realized what they'd missed. After seeing that poll, something fundamental shifted in me. The hurt was still there, but it was overshadowed by a burning determination to prove every single one of them wrong in the most spectacular way possible. They wanted to place bets on my failure. Perfect. I'd let them keep thinking they were right while I quietly built an empire they couldn't even imagine. The email I'd received that morning was from Elena Vasquez, a renowned art collector and gallery owner in Manhattan. She'd discovered my work through an online exhibition I'd participated in and was interested in discussing what she called a significant opportunity. We'd scheduled a video call for the following week, but I'd been too nervous to get my hopes up. Now, fueled by the rage of family betrayal, I was ready to grab this chance with both hands. The call with Elena exceeded my wildest expectations. She'd been following my work for several months and had noticed something she called authentic emotional depth in my digital pieces. What really caught her attention was a series I'd created called Modern Mythology, which reimagined classic mythological figures in contemporary settings. The technical skill, combined with innovative storytelling, had convinced her that I was ready for the big leagues. I'd like to propose featuring your work in our upcoming exhibition, Digital Renaissance New Voices in Contemporary Art, she explained during our call. This would be a solo show, Juniper. Your work would be the centerpiece with 25 pieces displayed over 6 weeks. We're talking about a potential reach of thousands of collectors and art enthusiasts. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely speak. A solo show at the Vasquez Gallery wasn't just a career opportunity, it was the kind of breakthrough that established artists dreamed about for years. And here I was, the family failure, being offered this incredible platform. But Elena wasn't finished. I've also been in touch with several collectors who are very interested in commissioning pieces from you. We're looking at potential sales in the $50,000 to $200,000 range per piece, depending on size and complexity. I nearly dropped my phone. In one conversation, my entire financial future had transformed. While my family was betting on my inevitable poverty, I was about to enter an income bracket that would put me well above most of their successful careers. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of preparation. I threw myself into creating new pieces for the exhibition, working 16-hour days to ensure everything was perfect. The irony wasn't lost on me while my family group chat continued their usual chatter about Amber's latest work achievements and social events. I was quietly preparing for the biggest art show of my career. I also started documenting everything. Screenshots of the original poll records of my artwork, sales photos of my pieces being prepared for the gallery. I wasn't sure exactly how I wanted to reveal the truth to my family, but I knew I wanted evidence of both their predictions and my reality. The financial transformation was happening faster than I'd expected. Pre-orders for pieces in the exhibition started coming in weeks before the show opened. My monthly income went from barely covering my studio apartment rent to more than my father made in his management position. I found myself looking at luxury apartments in Manhattan, something that would have been fantasy just months before. But I kept living exactly the same way. Same tiny apartment, same old car, same thrift store clothes. I wanted my family to see me exactly as they expected, right up until the moment I pulled back the curtain on my actual life. The gallery opening was scheduled for a Friday evening in late May. Elena had arranged for art critics from major publications to attend, along with collectors, other artists, and influential figures in the New York art world. This wasn't just going to be a small exhibition, it was being positioned as a major cultural event. As the date approached, I started planning exactly how to handle my family. I could have just announced the exhibition in the group chat, but that felt too simple. After what they'd put me through, they deserved something more dramatic. I wanted them to discover my success the same way I'd discovered their true opinions about me unexpectedly and with maximum impact. The solution came to me when I received an advance copy of New York Art Review, which had decided to feature my exhibition on their cover. The headline read, "Digital Visionary: How Juniper Morrison is Redefining Contemporary Art." Inside was a 4-page spread about my work, my background, and the significance of the exhibition. They'd interviewed Elena, who called me one of the most exciting emerging artists of this generation. Seeing my name on the cover of a major art publication was surreal enough, but reading the article made it real in a way that even the six-figure sales hadn't. Here was respected art criticism taking my work seriously, placing it in historical context, discussing my unique voice and innovative technique. This wasn't just commercial success, it was artistic recognition at the highest level. The week before the opening, I received another shock. A major streaming platform had reached out about licensing several of my pieces for a high-profile limited series they were producing. The licensing deal alone was worth more than most people made in 2 years. My silly computer pictures were about to be seen by millions of viewers worldwide. But perhaps the most satisfying moment came when I received a call from a journalist at Forbes. They were working on an article about young entrepreneurs who had built successful creative businesses, and someone had recommended me as a potential subject. During our interview, the journalist mentioned that my estimated annual income would likely place me in their 30 under 30 list for the creative category. 30 under 30. The same recognition that my family had celebrated when Amber made a regional business journal's Rising Stars list. Except this was Forbes, and this was national recognition for building something entirely from scratch. I was still the same person my family saw as a failure, still living in the same apartment, still wearing the same clothes. But I was also now a recognized artist, with a solo exhibition at a prestigious gallery, a six-figure income work being featured in major media productions, and potential Forbes recognition. The contrast between their perception and my reality had become so extreme it was almost comical. The opening was in 3 days, and I still hadn't told them anything. I'd been quiet in the family chat for weeks, letting them assume I was just being my usual antisocial self. They had no idea that their biggest disappointment was about to become their biggest surprise. It was time to show them exactly how wrong 16 people could be. The night before my gallery opening, I sat in my studio apartment, surrounded by printouts of reviews, sales receipts, and media coverage that my family knew nothing about. The contrast was almost absurd here. I was about to have one of the biggest nights of my career, and as far as my family knew, I was still the same struggling graphic designer who couldn't get her life together. The gallery had transformed completely in preparation for the exhibition. Elena had sent me photos throughout the week as they installed my pieces, and seeing my artwork displayed with professional lighting and elegant frames made it feel like someone else's life. The centerpiece was a large-scale digital installation called Metamorphosis that I'd spent months perfecting, a piece that would eventually sell for $150,000 to a collector from Los Angeles. Media coverage had been building steadily. In addition to the New York Art Review cover story I'd been featured in, ART News interviewed for a podcast that reached hundreds of thousands of art enthusiasts and mentioned in the culture section of the New York Times. My Instagram following had exploded from a few hundred followers to over 50,000 in just 2 weeks, but my family remained completely oblivious. The group chat had been typical that week: Amber sharing photos from her latest business conference, cousins posting pictures of their weekend activities, my parents forwarding motivational memes. No one had asked about my life or what I'd been up to. I was still invisible to them, still the family member they only remembered when they needed someone to pity or use as a cautionary tale. I'd decided on my strategy for the big reveal. Instead of simply announcing the exhibition, I wanted them to discover it organically, the way the rest of the world was discovering my work. I'd been tagged in several social media posts by art influencers and critics, and I knew it was only a matter of time before someone in my extended family stumbled across them. To speed up the process, I'd created a subtle plan. I posted a single photo on my personal Instagram account, not the professional art account they didn't know existed, showing just my hands holding a glass of champagne with the caption, "Celebrating tonight, sometimes hard work pays off in unexpected ways." In the background, if you looked carefully, you could see part of the gallery space and one corner of my artwork. It was cousin Rachel who took the bait first. She'd always been the family gossip, the one who followed everyone on social media and kept track of what everyone was doing. Within an hour of my post, she'd commented, "Ooh, what are you celebrating? Tell us everything." Instead of answering directly, I replied, "Just a little work thing. I'll share more soon." I wanted them curious, wanted them to start paying attention before I dropped the bomb. The next morning, the day of my opening, I woke up to 17 missed calls and 23 text messages. My heart started racing before I even read them. Had someone figured it out already? Had the secret gotten out somehow? But when I opened my messages, I realized something even better had happened. Elena had shared a photo on the gallery's Instagram account showing the final installation, and she'd tagged me in it. The post had been picked up by several major art accounts, and suddenly my name was spreading across social media in ways I hadn't anticipated. The messages weren't from my family, though they were from college, friends, former coworkers, and casual acquaintances who'd seen the posts and couldn't believe I'd kept such a huge achievement secret. Juniper, what the hell, read one text from my roommate from sophomore year. "You're literally famous and you didn't tell anyone." But the family group chat was still quiet. Either they hadn't seen the social media buzz yet, or they weren't paying enough attention to my life to notice that my name was suddenly appearing in art publications and gallery posts. That afternoon, I got ready for the opening with a level of care I'd never put into my appearance before. I'd bought my first designer dress for the occasion, a sleek black number that cost more than my car payment but felt appropriate for what Elena had described as the most important night of your career so far. Professional makeup, hair styled by someone who actually knew what they were doing, jewelry borrowed from a friend who worked in fashion. Looking in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. Gone was the struggling artist in thrift store clothes. This person looked successful, confident, like someone whose opinion mattered and whose achievements were worth celebrating. This was who I'd been becoming while my family was betting on my failure. The opening was scheduled for 7 p.m. At 6:30, as I was putting on my shoes and preparing to leave, my phone finally exploded. Someone I later found out it was Aunt Margaret's daughter Sarah, who worked in marketing and followed art industry accounts, had seen the gallery's posts and made the connection. The family group chat erupted in confusion and shock. "Wait, is this our Juniper? Is this the same Juniper Morrison? There's no way this is the same person. Someone please explain what's happening." And then Amber's message, the one that made everything worth it. "Juniper, are you seriously having a solo art exhibition in Manhattan and didn't tell anyone in the family? This has to be a mistake or a different person with the same name." I was in the Uber heading to the gallery when I finally responded to the chaos in the group chat. My message was simple: "See you all in tomorrow's newspapers. Tonight's the opening. Wish you'd thought to ask about my work before placing those bets on my failure." And then I turned off my phone and walked into the most important night of my life, knowing that my family was finally seeing me for who I really was. The Vasquez Gallery was transformed into something that looked more like a Hollywood premiere than an art opening. There were photographers at the entrance, a red carpet leading to the door, and a line of well-dressed people waiting to get inside. As I stepped out of the Uber, flashbulbs started going off, and I heard someone call my name for a photo. 6 months ago, I was invisible at family gatherings. Tonight, I was the center of attention at one of New York's most prestigious cultural events. Elena greeted me at the entrance with a huge smile and a hug that felt genuinely warm. "Juniper, you look absolutely stunning." Are you ready for this? Because the response has been incredible. We've already had inquiries about pieces, and 3 major collectors have flown in specifically for tonight. Walking into the gallery was like entering a dream. My artwork pieces I'd created in my tiny apartment working late into the night while my family assumed I was wasting my time now hung on pristine white walls with perfect lighting that made every detail pop. Professional placards displayed the titles and descriptions, along with price tags that still seemed surreal to me. The centerpiece Metamorphosis drew gasps from viewers. It was a large-scale digital piece that played with themes of transformation and hidden potential, showing a figure emerging from what appeared to be ordinary circumstances into something extraordinary. The metaphor wasn't lost on me. This piece was essentially my autobiography. Within the first hour, I'd been introduced to art critics from major publications, collectors whose names I recognized from museum donor lists, and even a few celebrities who were known for their art patronage. Every conversation followed a similar pattern: amazement at my technique, curiosity about my background, and shock that I was so young and this was my first major solo exhibition. Your work has this emotional depth that's rare in digital art, explained James Crawford, a critic from Art Forum. There's something very personal about these pieces. They feel like visual autobiography, but with universal themes that speak to broader human experiences. He was interviewing me for an article about emerging artists, and his questions were thoughtful and respectful in a way that felt completely foreign after years of my family's dismissive comments about my computer pictures. The financial success was happening in real time. Elena would periodically appear at my elbow with updates. 3 pieces sold in the first hour. The collector from Los Angeles wants to commission a series. Someone just inquired about purchasing the entire collection. By 8:30, my phone had been buzzing constantly despite being on silent. I could see the notification count climbing into the hundreds. The family group chat had apparently exploded after I'd turned off my phone, but there were also messages from news outlets, social media mentions, and congratulations from people I hadn't heard from in years. The moment that really drove home how much my life had changed came when I overheard 2 women discussing my work near the Modern Mythology series. One was explaining to the other how she'd discovered my pieces online and had been following my career development. "She's definitely someone to watch," the woman was saying. "I think we're looking at the next major voice in contemporary digital art. Someone to watch." The family failure was now someone to watch in the art world. Around 9 p.m., I finally checked my phone during a brief, quiet moment. The family group chat had 127 new messages. I scrolled through them quickly, watching the progression from confusion to shock to something approaching panic as they realized the magnitude of what they'd missed. "Aunt Margaret, I just Googled her, and there are articles in major art magazines. This is really happening. Uncle Frank, the New York Times, has a mention of her exhibition." The New York Times. "Cousin Rachel, I'm looking at the gallery website and her pieces are selling for like $50, 000 to $200, 000. Is this real life, my mother? I don't understand how this happened. When did all this start? Why didn't she tell us?" And then Amber's message, which was probably the most satisfying thing I'd ever read. I think we might have made a mistake with that poll. A really, really big mistake. But the message that really got to me was from my father, Juniper. "I'm seeing articles about your exhibition online, and I don't understand how we didn't know about this. Your mother and I are so proud of you. Can you forgive us for not understanding what you were building?" It was the first time in my adult life that my father had expressed pride in my artistic work without qualifying it with suggestions about getting a real job. The evening's highlight came during Elena's speech to the gathered crowd. She'd asked me beforehand if I wanted to say anything, but I'd requested that she handle the formal remarks while I focused on meeting people and answering questions about the work. Tonight, we celebrate an artist who represents everything exciting about contemporary creative expression, Elena announced to the room full of critics, collectors, and art enthusiasts. Juniper Morrison's work demonstrates that the most powerful art often comes from the most unexpected places. She's built her career independently, developing a unique voice that speaks to our moment while honoring classical artistic traditions. She paused and looked directly at me. What makes Juniper's story particularly inspiring is her determination to pursue her vision despite a complete lack of institutional support or family encouragement. She believed in her work when no one else did, and tonight we see the results of that faith. The room erupted in applause, and I felt tears threatening to ruin my carefully applied makeup. Elena didn't know about the poll, didn't know about years of family dismissal, but somehow she'd captured exactly what this night meant to me. As the evening wound down, I found myself standing in front of Metamorphosis, watching strangers appreciate something I'd created during some of the loneliest, most doubt-filled months of my life. In a few hours, I'd gone from family joke to celebrated artist. My phone buzzed with a text from Amber. Can we talk tomorrow? I owe you the biggest apology of my life. Tomorrow, I thought. Tomorrow we'll see how sorry they really are. The morning after my gallery opening, I woke up in my tiny studio apartment to discover that my life had fundamentally changed overnight. The New York Times had published a review calling my exhibition a revelatory debut from a major emerging talent. My Instagram had gained another 20,000 followers. Most importantly, Elena had called to inform me that the entire exhibition had sold out by midnight, with several pieces going into a bidding war that drove prices even higher than originally listed. But the real entertainment was happening in my family group chat, which had apparently been active all night. I made coffee and settled in to read through the digital meltdown that had occurred while I was sleeping. The conversation had evolved from shock to embarrassment to desperate attempts at damage control. Aunt Margaret had found and shared every article mentioning my name. Uncle Frank had discovered that my work was being discussed on art blogs and culture podcasts. Cousin Rachel had calculated my approximate earnings from the exhibition and posted the number with several mind-blown emojis. My mother had written a long, rambling message about how proud she'd always been of my artistic talents and how she'd always known I had potential. My father had shared a link to his Facebook post where he'd announced to his entire social network that his daughter was taking the New York art world by storm. But the most dramatic transformation was happening with Amber. The sister who had created the most likely to fail poll was now posting in the chat every few hours with new discoveries about my success. She'd found my interview in ART News, my feature in New York Art Review, mentions of my work in international art publications. Each discovery seemed to deepen her apparent horror at what she'd set in motion. Her messages became increasingly frantic. Juniper, I found an article saying, "You might be featured in Forbes 30 under 30. Please call me." The gallery website says you're already taking commissions for 6 figures. We need to talk. I've been awake all night reading about your career, and I feel absolutely sick about what we did. I let them stew for most of the morning while I dealt with the practical aftermath of my triumph. Interview requests from art publications, inquiries from galleries in other cities interested in hosting exhibitions, a call from my accountant who needed to discuss the tax implications of my sudden windfall. The validation was intoxicating, but what felt even better was the knowledge that I'd proven every single family prediction wrong in the most public way possible. The girl they'd voted most likely to end up broke had just earned more in one night than most of them made in a year. The biggest disappointment was now featured in the culture section of major newspapers. When I finally decided to engage with the family crisis, I started with a simple message in the group chat. "Good morning, everyone. Thank you for all the messages. It's been quite a night. I'm sure you have questions." The response was immediate. My phone started ringing within seconds. Amber calling, then my mother, then various aunts and uncles. I ignored them all and waited to see how they'd handle the situation in writing first. Amber's message came through first. Juniper, I am so incredibly sorry. I can't even begin to explain how ashamed I am about that poll. We had no idea what you were accomplishing. Please give me a chance to apologize properly. My mother followed Sweetheart. We are all so proud of you and so sorry we didn't understand what you were building. Your father and I want to take you to dinner to celebrate properly. Uncle Frank, who had been particularly condescending about my art thing for years, wrote Juniper, I owe you a massive apology. I clearly had no idea what I was talking about when I questioned your career choices. You've achieved something remarkable. The messages continued in that vein, variations on the theme of, we're sorry we didn't understand, and we're so proud of you now. But what none of them seemed to grasp was that this wasn't about them failing to understand my potential. This was about them actively betting against me, turning my struggles into entertainment and treating me like a family joke rather than a person worthy of basic respect. I crafted my response carefully. I appreciate everyone's congratulations and apologies. It means a lot to finally have family recognition for my work. I do want to address something, though. This success didn't happen overnight. I've been building my career for years, while many of you dismissed it as a hobby or a phase. The poll wasn't just hurtful because it was mean, it was hurtful because it showed that none of you had bothered to actually pay attention to what I was doing with my life. I paused before adding the part that really mattered. Moving forward, I hope we can have a different kind of relationship. One where you see me as I actually am, not as your assumptions about who I should be. The family failure was never real. It was just easier for everyone to believe than actually getting to know me. The responses to that message were more thoughtful, more genuinely apologetic. Several family members admitted they'd made assumptions based on outdated information and stereotypes about artistic careers. Others acknowledged that they'd been so focused on traditional markers of success that they'd missed the significance of what I was accomplishing. But the conversation that mattered most happened when I finally answered Amber's call that afternoon. She was crying before I even said hello. Juniper, I am so sorry. I've been up all night reading about your career and realizing what an absolute monster I've been. That poll was cruel and stupid, and I can't believe I thought it was funny. You've built something incredible while I was treating you like a punchline. Amber, I said quietly, I forgave you the moment I walked into that gallery last night. But I need you to understand that this isn't about the poll specifically. It's about years of being treated like I don't matter, like my dreams are less valid than yours. I know, she whispered, and I want to do better. We all do. The conversation lasted 2 hours, and by the end, we'd started to rebuild something that felt like an actual sisterly relationship, rather than the distant politeness we'd maintained for years. That evening, I sat in my studio apartment, the same space my family had seen as evidence of my failure, and looked through the reviews, the sales confirmations, the interview requests. Tomorrow, I'd start looking at penthouse apartments in Manhattan. Next week, I'd fly to Los Angeles to meet with the collector who wanted to commission a series. Next month, I'd be featured in Forbes. The family screw-up had become the family success story, and it felt even better than I'd imagined. So here's what I want to know from all of you. Have you ever been written off by people who should have supported you? Have you experienced that sweet moment when you proved the doubters wrong? Share your stories in the comments below. Love hearing about other people's comeback moments. If this story inspired you or made you think about the power of believing in yourself even when no one else does, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories about overcoming family drama and achieving success on your own terms. Share this video with anyone who needs a reminder that other people's limited vision of your potential doesn't define what you're actually capable of achieving. Thank you for being part of this journey with me, and remember the best revenge is living well and proving that their bets against you were the worst investments they ever made. Sometimes the biggest transformation isn't changing who you are, but finally showing the world who you've been all along. Keep creating, keep pushing forward, and never let anyone convince you that their lack of vision means you lack potential. Your story isn't over, it's just getting started.